How appropriate for the month of Halloween that I get to introduce the newest member of the basement family, a little black cat named Sadie.
Look at that!
Oh yes, how are you, honey? We adopted her. She's a rescue cat. She is sweet as a button. Did you know that black cats are the hardest cats to get adopted? People just don't want to adopt them. But we love our little Cecil, and so we figured we'd get another one. Sadie! Another thing I'd like to talk about here in the month of October is death. Specifically, the death of Andy Kaufman.
Maybe.
As many of you know, he died very young, tragically. There was some speculation that he might have faked his death as some sort of grand prank. Back in the late 90s, when the movie Man in the Moon came out, there was even some speculation that Jim Carrey would get an Oscar nomination.
He didn't.
My friends and I came up with a little fantasy scenario. Jim Carrey's nominated for an Oscar. He wins, and walking up to the stage to accept the award is Andy Kaufman. He takes the statue, he says, "Thank you very much." He leaves, is never heard from again.
Yeah, because there's no guards or security. He's only in downtown Los Angeles. He can just sneak away.
If Andy Kaufman actually faked his death and kept it hidden for this long, he would be a sort of Kaiser Soze figure who would be able to do this. I've got a bunch of movies that I've never seen before. You don't know what they are. Every episode I'm going to spring one on you. It might be good, it might be bad. We'll watch it and talk about it. Welcome to the basement. The chill winds of October are telling us that Halloween will soon be upon us. Tonight's movie is not only scary, it's also a classic. You'll be crying for your mommy when you encounter the Mummy.
Oh, hey! Welcome, Mr. Karloff.
Released in 1932, The Mummy stars Boris Karloff, Zita Johann, and Edward Van Sloan. It was produced by Carl Laemmle Jr. and directed by Karl Freund, who was the cinematographer for 1931's Dracula. This was his directorial debut. This story was inspired by the 1925 discovery of King Tut's tomb by Howard Carter. In fact, when Carter first opened the tomb, future Mummy screenwriter John L. Balderson was present as a reporter for the New York World newspaper. Makeup artist Jack Pierce spent 8 hours a day applying makeup to Boris Karloff's face, including so many layers of cotton that he was unable to move his facial muscles enough even to speak. You have not seen this.
I have not seen The Mummy. I expect to see at least one woman pressed against a wall and shriek and slowly slide down the wall as she's watching a doorknob slowly turn.
Okay, we'll see if that happens. For your gift today, I've assembled a trio of fiends that would be fine company for the Mummy, or at least they would be good pen pals.
Well, look at this. We have the werewolf, we have Dracula, and we have the Phantom of the Opera.
Stamps!
They're not stamps, they're pins.
Oh, really?
With the images from the stamps on them.
Oh, okay. You can't mail those.
I can impress the lady post office worker. Hello, lady.
3 classic Universal monsters.
They're everywhere. They're universal.
Brave the shifting sands as you make your way to the oasis that is the old leather couch as we experience the curse of the Mummy. No, that's totally wrong.
Fair enough.
The Scroll of Thoth, rumored to contain an incantation to raise someone from the dead. The Scroll of Thoth is very dangerous.
It's Egypt, 1921. There is a team of British archaeologists who have just unearthed a mummy.
Sir Joseph Wemple and his assistant are examining some old shards of pottery. Dr. Muller stops by. He's there to examine the mummy that they recently found.
The usual scar made by the embalmer's knife is not there.
Thank you, Kinski.
Imhotep.
Imhotep, you're a hotep, he's a hotep, she's a hotep. Wouldn't you like to be a hotep too? Imhotep had been buried alive. They also find a chest. I'm going to open this. Now don't look directly at it, whatever you do. That is inscribed with a mummy curse. Those are some of the worst kinds of curses.
Good heavens, what a terrible curse.
Let's open it.
Go on with your cataloguing. We'll open it later.
Go on with your cataloging, cataloger. Catalog, catalog, catalog. All I do all day is catalog. Catalog, catalog. Sir Joseph and Muller go outside to talk over this whole mummy business. I don't hear any cataloging. But meanwhile, that assistant, he's real curious. Why, there's nothing in here but an old and he pulls out a scroll. Dear Diary, it's me, Imhotep. I met a girl today. I really like her. He starts to read it aloud.
Uh-oh, that's not good.
Come on. I want to see... Oh, yeah. He's waking up. They post him like a rapper.
There's a stirring behind him, but he doesn't notice it because he's just reading the scroll.
What else is in this box? The Necronomicon. Oh, I'll read that out loud, too. And that mummy behind him wakes up. It's alive again. The mummy takes the scroll and skedaddles.
And this drives him insane. Dr. Wemple comes in and is like, oh, this.
You should have seen his face.
Why, that mummy will save vaudeville.
Later at Cairo's Comedy Cellar.
Flash forward 11 years. Frank Wemple, Sir Joseph's son, and his buddy are complaining about archaeology. We haven't found anything exciting. Just then a man shows up. Ardoth Bey. He bears a certain resemblance to a certain mummy named Imhotep. Ardoth Bey tells Frank that he can lead them to the tomb of
Ankhsenamen,
who is a princess of ancient Egypt.
the most sensational find since that of Tutankhamun.
Uncommon.
We Egyptians are not permitted to dig up our ancient dead.
I really can't understand him because of his thick Egyptian accent. They go to the location.
Can you dig it?
They find a tomb. It's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. All of it is taken out and installed in the Museum of Cairo. Cairo Museum, Cairo, Illinois.
The exhibition opens. It's a huge success.
What do you think, Jeremy Irons? Meanwhile, at a party, we meet Helen Grosvenor, a pretty lady who's a society lady, I think. Ardoth Bey visits the exhibit. He really likes it. He says, I'm going to look at this stuff because I think it's neat.
He's a strange one.
A little corpsey. That night, Ardoth Bey has snuck into the museum.
And he does a little bit of sorcery.
And at that party, Helen
Goes into a trance.
gets in a cab, says, take me to the museum. She gets to the door.
I must get in.
I want to get freaky with a dusty daddy. Let me in the door. I want to get in the door. I want to go in the museum. She is rescued by Frank.
She's a hot tamale. Hey, lady, don't pass out. Come with me.
Back to his place where she can lie down. I sense I have been cock-blocked. Sir Joseph hears her doing this mumbling, and he says she's speaking ancient Egyptian.
Not heard on this earth for 2,000 years.
And I can identify it just like that.
She might be in the thrall of something supernatural.
Snowfro. Popular blaxploitation hero.
Skiing blaxploitation hero,
Yeah.
Snowfro.
Ardoth Bey is found in the museum. He's chased off by a guard, but the guard dies of fright.
Now, Sadie, don't be scared. It's just a mummy movie.
In the guard's hand is a scroll.
This is the Scroll of Thoth that we were talking about before. Dr. Muller is still kicking around too, 11 years later. He's older. I bet these two guys will work together to defeat that mummy. Because you know what they say, bros before Imhotep.
Imhotep?
Hell no, Tap.
When we came to unwrap the girl herself.
How could you do that?
Had to. Science, you know.
I'm gonna unwrap you later. Science. Frank announces his feelings for Helen, who he has had about 30 seconds of conversation with while she hasn't been in a trance.
It seems absurd when we've known each other such a short time.
Yes, this seems really absurd. Could you please take me to a hospital now? She says, well, I shouldn't, but sure. Dr. Miller and Dr. Wemple decide that this scroll should probably be destroyed. We should hide it, and then later on we're going to burn it. Ardoth Bey stops by. There's an Egyptian man, a Nubian man, who answers the door. Look into my eyes. You're my minion now. I can do this type of thing.
You're not going to get any chicks by being that intense, man. Gotta loosen up, tell some jokes.
Scarab walks into a bar. Bartender says, I'm sorry, we don't serve scarabs here. So beetle it.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Oasis.
Oasis who?
Psych, it's just sand.
It was stolen 10 years ago, together with the mummy of the high priest Imhotep.
Imhotep?
Imhotep. He says, hey, do you have my scroll? Sir Joseph says, hey, are you a mummy? None of your business. Give me my scroll back, it's mine. Sir Joseph says, you can't have it. Ardath Bey says, "You'll be sorry."
Never.
Ribbit, 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 ribbit. Ardath Bey leaves.
A jackal walks into a bar. The bartender says, "I'm sorry, we don't serve jackals here, so hit the road, jackal. And don't you come back'll."
Ardath Bey is back at his place, and he's got this magic pool on the ground.
He sees where Sir Joseph has hidden the scroll, and he uses his mummy powers. Ardath Vader to kill Sir Joseph. The servant lights a fire to make everyone think that Sir Joseph burned the scroll.
I tell you, the doctors say it's a plain case of heart failure.
He underwent a total eclipse of the heart and died. His heart of rock and roll is no longer beating. And let me tell you, it's a heartache. But then Dr. Muller realizes that these ashes are not papyrus ashes, they're ordinary newspaper ashes. Somebody has that scroll and it's probably Ardath Bey. He gives Frank a charm that is supposed to protect you from evil.
Isis.
Oh, Isis, you're a mystical child. What drives me to you is what drives me insane.
Helen takes her dog out for a walk, and she decides to visit Ardath Bey because she is compelled by mind control.
I'm gonna put your dog into a trance and send it out of the room. The dog doesn't seem to like me or my cat. Alright, look into my pool.
And she sees images of ancient Egypt. His girlfriend, Princess Oxanamen, dies.
Your last words were, "Now when I die, now don't think I'm a nut. Don't want no fancy funeral, just one like old King Tut.
We interred her in a condo made of stona." Imhotep sneaks into somewhere, and he steals the Scroll of Thoth, which will raise her from the dead.
They broke in upon me and found me doing an unholy thing.
The same thing happened with my mother when I was 12 years old.
Knock, I cried. Knock!
And he is condemned to the nameless death, being mummified alive. You are my princess from long ago. You've been reincarnated.
I think we can really make this work. If we, as a couple.
I had strange dreams.
You weren't listening? Now I have to do the whole thing over again. It's going to take at least 5 minutes to rewind my pool.
Meanwhile, in the next room, her dog is killed by a cat.
The dog knows too much.
She goes back and tells Frank what's going on. She says, "My dog is dead, and I don't know where I just was." Frank says, I don't like it.
I've given her some bromide. She's asleep now.
You know, bromide, the thing that makes people help them to sleep. Everyone knows what bromide is.
The Mummy, brought to you by Bromide.
Ardath Bey is looking into his special pool. He tries to kill Frank with his mummy finger. I have taken too much bromide.
All right.
Damn.
Helen, in a trance, goes off to the museum. All right, baby, let's make this thing happen.
He says, "I'm going to take this old mummy and burn it. Then I'm going to kill you.
But don't worry, you won't be dead long. I'll bring you back."
Anubis and I have a handshake agreement that she will be sent back to Earth after spending just a little time in the land of the dead. You're going to be like me, and we can live together forever.
Helen's not completely thrilled about this, and she goes back and forth from being the ancient priestess to being Helen. It's all very confusing for her, and for me. Frank and Dr. Miller show up at the museum.
They find Ardath Bey. He's got special powers. What do they got? They got nothing. Helen says a prayer to Isis.
You have to save me. This is all messed up.
The arm of the statue moves. It sets that scroll on fire, and that causes the mummy to re-mummy back into being a mummy. And he crumbles to a skeleton. I expected the mummy to have a more dramatic death than just those two guys going.
And that's the end of Imhotep.
The Mummy, a horror movie.
Universal horror is yet to scare me.
There was a few scares in it, but I was put off by the fact that he was the mummy for so little of the movie.
Oh, he probably wasn't. That sounds like it was a very long and horrible process.
I know, but I wanted more Mummy and less of this kind of wrinkled goon that would walk around glaring at everyone.
Yes.
It seems like people of the 30s had a real low threshold for horror.
I know. What were the scary things?
The face. If you saw that on a 40-foot movie screen, that probably would strike terror.
And the first scene where the snide Oxford boy is confronted by the mummy, that's straight up scary. When I was a kid, my mom was insisting that I watch Psycho when I was 10 years old. And I just knew it was scary. And just that knowledge made me terrified of it. So like half the movie I'm watching it like this. There's so few actual scary things in the movie. It's really more of a thriller than a horror movie.
Yep.
And while this one is like, well, we had that opening scene. Now you'll be scary throughout the rest of the movie.
So I understand that this movie is more about atmosphere and thrills and dread.
Yes.
But I still feel the need that it needed more terror.
Yeah.
And I have a way that it could have been improved. Get rid of the Nubian servant. Imhotep's servant is a mummy. So when he goes to do stuff, we've got this other creature who can do scary things.
Yeah.
Also, they needed to do more with that cat.
Who was the cat?
Supposedly the cat might have been Bast. The cat kills a dog off screen. What's the point? The magical stuff was good. The reading the spells, the death finger. It wanted more stuff like that.
Finding a man in a museum reading a scroll in the middle of the night. That's kind of scary. And the idea of someone who can just kill basically at will for anyone who doesn't have some sort of amulet on.
And seeing Boris Karloff mummified alive. That was very arresting.
There was just so much talking.
Yep. So far, this isn't so much a horror movie, it's just kind of a chamber drama.
Like the original Dracula, that has a lot of talking in it. This one was like a Cathy cartoon and a Doonesbury cartoon mixed together.
Another horror thing they could have done more with is the idea of his disintegrating body.
Your pardon, I dislike to be touched.
I tend to crumble. Somebody grabs him and his arm just pulls off and there's just bone there. That was doable back then.
Yeah.
And it could have been a really visceral shock.
I think I found his weakness. If whatever he touches he leaves a mark on, that's a sign that he's there. He could still be here.
Sure.
What are Imhotep's superpowers?
He's got a pool that he can see things in.
He can drive people insane. That's some Lovecraft stuff for you.
He did something where the guys just kind of went, I don't know what that was.
Again, they've built this character out of very cool parts and then did nothing with him.
So I have a fun fact about this movie.
Yes.
The name Ardoth Bay, which he chooses after he comes back to life, it is an anagram for Death by Ra. You know what I love?
What?
Mummies.
Do you?
I do. Whenever I go to a museum and I see a mummy exhibit, not just the mummies, but just the things from the tombs and old stone stuff. Anytime I see a mummy, I'll kind of look at a mummy all day. And when I hear news stories about they found a new tomb, I just go to the article and say, show me the pictures. So do we need to talk about the romance in this?
What's there to say?
Yeah, exactly.
You know how I like picking up women? I wait for them to go into a trance and they show up outside my place of business. Then they pass out. And I take her back, not to her place, but to my rich uncle's house.
I suppose it's necessary because you need him to be invested in her to be willing to risk his life to save her.
Really? How invested do you have to be to save someone's life? Do you have to be in love with that? Of course, it's Hollywood, it's romance, you need to have that, but no. You just have to be like, this is a fellow human being, I don't want something bad to happen to them.
That works in life, but not in the movies in the 30s.
Okay. This Frankenstein and Dracula all were pre-Hays Code, and I really wish that they would have pressed farther against what could be done back then. They could have made this movie a lot sexier.
Well, we've watched The Mummy, and it can go back to sleep. But it is time for us to press on to Seen It.
Seen It.
Facial muscles paralyzed. Didn't even need any cotton. Our theme for Seen It here at the dawn of October is non-traditional horror. Movies that aren't considered horror movies, but still make your spine tingle. Or make your face scream.
Alexander Forbes writes, Trainspotting, seen it? I watched it for the first time last night. By the end of the movie, I wasn't sure what to think of it, what it was all supposed to mean. Seen it.
Seen it. Alexander, it means don't do hard drugs. This movie is a lot of things, but once Renton goes into that room with that wallpaper and that baby appears, the movie becomes pure horror. I think it's one of the scariest scenes I've ever seen.
Really? Some people...
Clink, 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 clink.
Trainspotting, it still seems very vibrant and vital today. I watched it again just a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't just young and passionate when I saw this. It's a movie that exudes excitement.
Charles McGuffey, have you seen Cannibal the Musical? Seen it.
Seen it.
I think I saw this around the time it came out. I imagine the years had not been kind to it. I remember being very impressed by the songs. South Park the movie had not come out. I was just really impressed that these two goofs could really put together a very convincing musical.
Parker and Stone have a high respect for musicals. Mm-hmm. And that's how you make a great parody of one. You have to really love what you're making fun of to make it work.
Yeah. So I really liked the songs and the music. The gore was fun, the fact that they were being so transgressive with it, and the humor was really hit and miss.
I almost wish that they could go back and remake it.
Sure.
To see what they could do with it now.
And with better actors. I get the feeling they just cast their buddies in the roles, and some of them were good and some of them were not.
I've known about Al Packer for a very, very long time. If you ever go to the University of Colorado in Boulder, the cafeteria is named for Packer. Oh, a cafeteria named after a cannibal. Yes. Sarah, what's in right? Eraserhead! Sadie!
In heaven, everything is fine. You've got your good thing, and I've seen it.
I should watch this movie again.
Sure.
Because I have a baby now, and I have been kept awake all night by a screaming little monster, who I love more than anything else in the entire world. But there are times when it's like, please stop. And I wonder how David Lynch's daughter feels about this movie, because she knows that she's the inspiration for all of this.
So much of the horror of this movie is the sound of it. The industrial hum and the noise and the jarring metal sounds. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's an assault of your ears while you're figuring out what the hell's going on screen.
And just the sound of that baby is piercing. It's piercing.
And then the people, the family of the girl that he marries, they're just these circus freaks with no special abilities.
Yeah. Ah, Mr. Lynch.
Mr. Lynch. You're a weird one, Mr. Lynch. King Kamina writes, have you guys seen The World's End? Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are still the dynamic duo of British comedy. Seen it.
Seen it.
This is the third of the so-called Cornetto trilogy.
Which is funny if you're English. I've only seen this movie once. I saw it in the theater, and there's so much unexpected that comes the first time you see it, particularly if you just think it's about guys going on a pub crawl.
Sure.
It really slaps you about in ways that you're not expecting. But also, it's a very serious portrait of addiction.
And also growing up versus not growing up. Mm-hmm. As far as horror goes, were there any parts of this movie that you found scary?
I always find body snatcher type things, and this goes for zombies as well. I find it to be quite disarming. That gets me on a soul level where someone can look like me and just kind of suck me out of my body and put themselves in. That is something that freaks me out.
Or the idea that your friends suddenly become your enemies.
Yeah.
If you have a Seen It suggestion, leave it in the comments, man. We might read it on Seen It, man. Or lady. Go check out welcometothebasementshow.com. There are PayPal donation buttons on there. You can click them and contribute to support our show. That's what Quinn did. He says, thank you for the superb reviews, commentary, and picking us up when we're down.
We'll pick you up. Get up, man. Get up, Quinn.
The Mummy. Done. What's our next horror movie going to be? Only I know. And now this.
Lorenzo.